The game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Definitely goes through phases where certain cards or even card types become viable and see increased play, and other cards drop off the face of the map. In the current meta, trap cards have become much more popular, with some decks running at least double digits. Therefore, if people are running trap-heavy decks, maybe it's time to bust out an old chestnut to combat this meta culture. It's time to enter Jinzo, who might as well be Sandman for some of the trap-heavy and/or trap-critical decks of the current meta. The Jinzo deck is an interesting experiment because it's one of the many pseudo-archetypes in that a handful of cards were created to support it, but it never really took off, heavily limiting direct support options. Obviously, when building a Jinzo deck, we must first start with 3 copies of the original Mr. Trapstopper, Jinzo. Now, when looking at all of the other direct Jinzo support, it's not really that impressive outside of Jinzo Jector. Jector is a fantastic support card that has numerous advantages. First, it allows you to search and add one Jinzo from your deck to your hand by tributing it, producing deck thinning and eliminating a low efficiency draw probability. Second, it allows you to see all of your opponent's face-down cards, giving you an information advantage, and if any of those face-down cards are traps, you can special summon an equal number of Jinzos from your hand, which due to the searching option will be at least 1. Third, while this is only a simple point, it is a level 4, which allows you to go into rank 4xz plays. Fourth, while it may not seem relevant immediately, it's a dark monster. Unfortunately, as mentioned prior, the rest of the support is just bad. Jinzo Lord is basically worthless. If its trap destruction effect was draw 1 card instead of inflict a near worthless 300 damage, then it could be serviceable. But it's not. If Jinzo Returner did not have the destroy at your end phase aspect to its effect, then it could be good. But it does, so its ability to produce advantage is generally limited to hoping you get it run over by your opponent during your opponent's turn, which is possible, but there are better cards. The less said about Jinzo number 7, the better. Amplifier, that's just bad. It's a bad draw, and it has a bad effect. So, with a grand total of 6 cards from the lavish Jinzo and Jinzo support option for our deck, there are some significant holes to fill. First, Jector is a dark machine with less than 1500 attack points. While it may turn some people off, those who have viewed some of my other deck builds know I still actually like the Elemental Battle Searchers, and Mystic Tomato makes perfect sense in this deck as a means to speed the acquisition and utilization of Jector's effect. So 3 copies of Tomato. Keeping with the dark theme, one of the most underrated cards in the game, in my opinion, is Genex Ally Crusher, so 3 copies of it go in the deck. Crusher is a useful card for dark heavy decks because it produces free advantage for doing just the basic play of normal summoning monsters. Its 2000 defense is a nice wall, just like Jector, and its destruction effect is helpful because it destroys 1 card, not 1 monster, so it can take down the annoying face-up spells and traps, including pendulum cards. With all of the above machines, another strong choice for this deck is Machina Fortress. In my opinion, any deck that has a significant machine presence should use Machina Fortress because it's one of the best effect monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! So 3 copies of Machina Fortress. While the level of destruction or disruption-based spells seems to be at a kind of all-time low in most decks, you have the 1 Raigeki, 1 Dark Hole, maybe 2, 1 Book of Moon, and maybe 1 or 2 cards that do something else that affect monsters in a negative way. There's still some problem for Jinzo decks dealing with monster effects, especially because there are so many more monster-eliminating monster effects now than they were in the past when Jinzo was kind of in its heyday. Thus, 2 effect Veilers is almost a must in this deck. Also, Veiler's tuner ability helps provide some versatility in Synchro summoning. Furthermore, Veiler can be quite sneaky in combination with Machina Fortress. If your opponent does not have a spell or trap way of removing Fortress from the field, they might just kind of get a little desperate and decide, okay, I'm going to give up that 1 card from my hand. I'm going to target with a some XZ monster like Castel. Well, you lay down Veiler after Castel chooses its target. You eliminate Castel's return to the deck effect, but you also still force your opponent to discard from their hand because they did target. Rounding out the monsters, I like to run 3 copies of Black Salvo because it sticks with the Dark Machine theme and has other advantages. Salvo is useful in 2 ways. First, his special summoning ability allows you to reuse Jector, and second, because it's a tuner, you can move right into a level 7 Synchro with that special summoning ability. Finally, I run 1 copy of Dark Armed Dragon due to the number of dark monsters in this deck, and both Salvo and Call of the Haunted help manage the graveyard, increasing summoning potential. Moving on to the spells, first the typical staples. I run 1 Raigeki, 1 Book of Moon, 1 Soul Charge, and 2 Dark Holes, as at only 2400 attack, Jinzo can get run over from time to time, so you need the field clearing power of Dark Hole to set up your Jinzo plays. Also, the deck is principally machine-based, so 1 limiter removal. As mentioned, the 2400 attack for Jinzo can be a problem, especially when a number of basic, easily constructed rank 4 XZs and a number of common synchros sit at 2500. So I like to run 2 copies of Forbidden Chalice to add that critical 400 attack boost when my opponent decides to, I got a 2600 attack point monster, I'm just going to charge over Jinzo. Nope, now my Jinzo is 2800. Chalice is also another nice card to help relieve some of the load off of Effect Veiler with its ability to negate effects of your opponent's monsters. Chalice really is one of those fantastic, underrated cards that a lot of people who don't consistently run Cleaport have kind of forgotten about. On a side note, Machine Assembly Line is also another choice instead of Chalice, for while it only produces a 200 attack boost, going from 2400 to 2600 is a pretty crucial jump. It also has the additional advantage of possibly summoning extra monsters. However, the 2 major disadvantages of Machine Assembly Line is its continuous effect exposes your monsters to Ragna 0, and the lack of monster negation puts more pressure back on Veiler, so I think Chalice is clearly the superior choice. Rounding out the spells, there are 2 good options. The first one is Magic Planter, because with Jinzo as the key player, my trap lineup will be largely made up of continuous traps that will sit meaninglessly on the field with Jinzo presence or after some XZ play by either player. The second option is Inferno Reckless Summons, to take advantage of the fact that Jector's effect changes its name to Jinzo on the field or in the graveyard, so the actual Jinzo can be used as well with the effect. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, but for me, I lean a little more towards Magic Planter because Jector's search effect limits some of the advantage produced by Inferno Reckless Summon. However, Inferno Reckless Summon is a good side deck card against Pendulum decks because there's kind of something hilarious about bringing back Crusher with Call of the Haunted, using Inferno Reckless Summon, and then normal summoning a Dark Monster, letting you destroy 3 cards on your opponent's field, with 2 of those cards being their scale. Moving on to the traps, I run 3 copies of Call of the Haunted because its destruction effect is neutralized when reviving Jinzo, and revival is almost always useful. Also, 3 copies of Fiendish Chain because not only is it a useful trap for stopping the opponent's momentum, but it works in combination with Magic Planter. Finally, the 3 most important trap staples, in my opinion: 1 Torrential, 1 Bottomless, 1 Solemn Warning. Some people might say, well, you're running a Jinzo deck, why are you running so many traps? Well, Call of the Haunted and Fiendish Chains are rather self-explanatory. And the 3 staples, well, either Jinzo is going to be controlling the field, or I'm going to use those 3 cards to help me get back in the game when Jinzo's not on the field. Before moving on to the extra deck, there is a final point made about the main deck. I don't run Mass Change 2 in this deck because I think the discard demand can be a little too much for this deck, because you don't produce a lot of positive hand gain advantage. However, it can be good side deck material. My extra deck is as followed. I have 1 Star Eater, it's the Out to Towers. I have 1 Leo, Keeper of the Sacred Tree. You can make it with Machina Fortress and Black Salvo. 1 Yazi, made with Veiler and Jinzo or Salvo in any level 4. In my opinion, Yazi's probably the best level 7 Synchro. 1 Clearwing Synchro Dragon. 1 Black Rose Dragon, my XZs, 1 Mecha Phantom Beast Dracossack, 1 number 11 Big Eye, 1 Photon Strike Bouncer, the 4 rank 4 staples, in my opinion, Exciton Knight, 1 number 101, 1 Castel, 1 XYZ Dragon, and 1 Antiluminescent Knight. Because we have all these machines, 1 Gear Gigant, and 1 Gagaga Cowboy. Overall, Jinzo's one of those golden oldie cards that many people probably thought had its day in the sun, but now it's not really viable anymore. While this deck is certainly not Tier 1, thinking that it can't compete is not correct, as it has some nice matchups against the higher ranked decks like Stellar Knights, Burning Abyss, because without Fire Lake, Burning Abyss can really struggle. Fire Lake's Burning Abyss's big trump card. And Ritual Beasts. I mean, see how well Ritual Beasts do when they can't run to hide behind an ambush or a Steeds. Unfortunately for Jinzo, he does have a pretty bad matchup against Kleeport and Necros. And that's kind of what, along with BAs, that's kind of what rules the roost so far at this point in Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, that's my deck build. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.